And then you have some of the smartest people in the world trying to figure out how much money can I give you that you can't afford to repay on time, but will one day repay.
Yeah.
That's what a credit card does. Okay, so if I said to you, you've got 1,000 quid, I'll make it a round number, on your credit card for 42 days past your interest-free period, what will it cost you?
I don't actually know.
No, and by the way, no one does. Card companies, and you go, guys, these cards were invented 75 years ago.
Of course.
This model has not changed, and it's fundamentally against you.
Our guest today is Philip Belamant, the founder and CEO of Zilch. And Zilch is one of the fastest growing fintech companies in the UK at the moment. And today we're going to talk about the man behind the idea. So not just about Zilch, but also about Philip himself. So Philip, welcome to the show.
Well, very good to be here. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for taking the time out. So look, we're going to dive straight in. And first of all, I'd love to talk a little bit about your kind of background prior to Zilch and almost the founder's story, right? So who is Philip Belamant? Where did it all start for you?
I mean, really, the way I think about it is kind of, a lot of people talk about entrepreneurs and founders, and I kind of think about it more as builders, problem solvers. What is it that, annoys you that you're trying to fix? And that's more the way I think of at least myself. So if I go backwards, all the way to when I was sort of still in school, I grew up in South Africa, and my father was, really smart technologist. And so computer science wasn't actually a subject in school back then. And so it was like an extra subject you could sort of take. And this is when you're talking about like you programming in languages like Turbo, Pascal, and like, old school stuff.
Of course.
And so this is where I think I really got into technology. And what I loved about programming was that my father was a programmer. On the weekends, I would sit with him and, instead of playing games, we would write games. We were coding games together.
That's very cool.
And that was really cool, right? So people were playing games, or at the time it was Sega, that type of thing. It wasn't quite PlayStation, whatever yet. But, I was sitting coding games with my father. And what I loved about this is you could think of anything and you could go and build it. You could see any problem and you could go and write a little app to go fix it. And that was pretty cool because, most of the things you see in life, I think, especially when you're growing up, and the roles and the jobs you sort of think about, or the careers you look at, are sort of like tangible things. When you're younger, people are like, I want to be a fireman or a policeman or a doctor or a professional type tangible roles. Whereas like coding or something just wasn't one of those roles when I was growing up. So needless to say, you see a problem. My mother loved Sudoku, these little puzzles or whatever they were, and word search puzzles, and I could go and write an app to start solve these puzzles, and that was pretty cool. So that's where like that bug for seeing a problem or trying to go and write some code to build something to fix that problem began. And I was fortunate my father was obviously, equipped with the skill to sit with me and really do this with me and generate that or grow that love for this. So that's where it sort of started. And that's when, mobile devices started to come around, and you had all of the I thought this was just the best era in mobile devices. You had Nokia doing its thing. You had, Samsung D600s, you had these flip phones, LG, and everyone was getting into the mix.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that progressed to BlackBerry, which was awesome. And then you had eventually iPhone. But I really enjoyed writing apps for phones because now I could actually write a problem-solving app, something that worked for me, and I could keep it in my pocket. And that was really, completely just changed the game. So I could actually pull out this little game and play it, or I could write an app that solves an issue and I have it right with me. Which I found was really interesting. I thought that was really cool. So I really got stuck into that. So basically went to university in Johannesburg, University of Johannesburg. Back then it was called RAU. And we had to get a team together and do a project.
Right.
And so we started doing a project for mobile gaming, and then we realized the university will own the IP. So we changed the project to something else.
Right.
And built like a biometric security system, which again was interesting, but wasn't really what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And so this group of people that I was working with, obviously we were friends, and I tried to convince a few of them to come along and start this business up, which was my first company called P-Bell.
That's
so not
very
not very inventive, Philip Belamant basically. And the whole concept was mobile gaming. So, we would, at the time, data in South Africa was really expensive. Most mobile games that you had, you could only play on your device with yourself.
Of course.
And so, there were first person like LAN shooters, these types of, that we all used to play, Counter-Strike and all these things, but there was nothing on a mobile device. You couldn't play against one another with mobile devices. And so the concept was, let's use GPRS connectivity or Bluetooth, and you could play with people nearby on your device. That was the concept. And so we went off to go and build that. And ultimately, you could do this, and you could use airtime minutes. In South Africa, again, a lot of people would still use cash, buy minutes, top up their phone. And you could use those minutes to buy items in the games, or you could exchange this through the game. And what we found is lots of people were doing that. They were sending minutes to one another or exchanging items, but no one was actually playing the games, really.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we were like, this is, what's going on?
Yeah.
And so we spoke to a number of our customers, and they said, well, there's a convenient way for me to transact, actually. But the games are not that interesting.
Right.
And so we kind of got rid of the games and created a mobile payments business. And that's how I sort of stumbled into fintech,
right?
Which was really by chance. It wasn't the plan. And obviously some of my friends who came along thought we were going to build the next PlayStation and this was going to be awesome. And I'm like, well, we're not doing the games anymore. We're actually doing like virtual card payments and technology. And people are like,
and they're like, hold on a minute.
Yeah, they're like, what is this?
Dream.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And speaking about talent, that was a big disappointment for this talented team, right? Because they're like, but we're doing games, aren't we? Yeah. I'm like, well, no, not anymore.
But surely games, there's probably more money in games.
Absolutely.
At least then, right?
Well, at the time, no. But, that's because there were no app stores yet and it wasn't, as prolific as it is now. But we could use a lot of the skills we had from making the games. So figuring out the number of pixels per screen, if you loaded an image that was larger than a Samsung D600 screen, the phone would blow up, it would just not work. So we had learned all of those things, how to port these applications from one device to the other, all of this stuff before the iPhone and Android made this simple. So we could use all of that and transpose it into this world of mobile payments and money. And we could build apps that you could download on every device and would work and look awesome.
Right.
Because mobile money apps actually were pretty boring.
Of course.
So we brought all of that to mobile money, and that's why I think that became really successful. So, so that's sort of just like the background of how I came to really enjoy technology, IT tech. I'm a technologist by heart.
No, for sure. Okay, cool. And then you fast forward to coming over to the UK. And I think this is a really interesting part of your story, right? So, and this is kind of where the conviction for Zilch came from originally, I guess. When you landed and you tried to get credit on a personal level, you were a financially stable individual and you struggled with that, right? So can you kind of tell us about that story and that experience?
Yeah, sure. So if we quickly go back to the South African business, so we built this business, we rolled out in well over 20 African countries with this mobile payment technology. And what was really interesting is that, again, talking about solving problems, is that in South Africa and Africa, we started working a lot with governments for social welfare distribution. And the problem was that people would travel for hours. So they would work all week away from their families. They would travel then for hours on a Saturday. They would go to a pay point or somewhere that's distributing this. They would queue for hours, to actually receive their welfare or their grant. And so we used our technology to help make that more efficient. And one of the products we rolled out first was an advanced airtime product. So this was, you could borrow airtime instead of having to go and try top up on the weekend. And we started with that. And we sort of had like these big CRT old school screens where, they kind of like went a bit purpley if they were a bit broken or something. And so, what we had is we had dots that represented people receiving the welfare, and we had dots that represented people who were dependent on them. And these were red and green dots. And you could see where these were on the weekends and the weekdays, and they were always apart from each other.
Okay.
So the person generating the money was always away from the green dots, which were the family or dependents. And we launched this product. And, this was really where I saw, because a lot of people would say technology or fintech can really transform lives. And at the time, I honestly didn't understand what they meant by that.
Right. Okay.
Because again, you can't see it, right? If you're building a physical thing, like a wheelchair can transform someone's life. We know that, you can see it.
Yeah.
Technology or like fintech specifically, you're like, can it really? Whereas it's hard to see. And this was the first time I saw it, where we rolled this product out. And so what happened is people could dial up on their phone. They don't have to now go anywhere. They could sit at home on the couch. They could dial up on their phone with zero airtime, and they could borrow airtime from us. And then when they went to work on the Monday back to a city, they could top up and pay us back then.
Right.
And so we launched the product to millions of people were customers. We came in on the Monday and we were looking at the data of these dots moving around. And we thought the screen was broken. It was like all the dots were sort of magenta-ish color. Right. The whole screen looked like it. It sort of, it was bust. And we sort of like tapping on the side of the screen. And we realized that no, it was working. But for the first time that we had been watching it, the dots were overlapping.
Right.
So we had reunited people with their families and friends.
That's amazing.
Right. And that was probably the first real opportunity I got to see how fintech can genuinely change people's lives.
Yeah.
And, something as simple as that. So that's sort of where the whole thing started in financial services, built this business.
Right.
And ultimately, about 12 years ago, exited the company completely, and we had listed this group on the NASDAQ and the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. And I moved over 12 years to the UK.
Of course.
And the reason was that we were having this debate with the board of our South African business about how we maybe move to developed economies, earning in pounds and dollars rather than Naira and Rands and reporting in dollars, which was tough. And fundamentally, we disagreed. The board felt this was a emerging markets business and it should stay that way. And I think in hindsight, that was the right decision.
Right.
But I'd been, in a different African country every 2 or 3 weeks for 15 years of my life by then.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, well, let's go and see if we can bring some of that know-how and that learning to developed market. So moved to the UK. And as you've just said, got here, went to go and get a credit card. And obviously the bank said, well, you can't have one.
Couldn't, yeah.
And then went to go and get a mobile device. And EE, etc. were like, that's great. Obviously, you can have one of these, but you just need a credit card.
Yeah.
I didn't have one of those. So I had to buy the mobile device for cash. I had to buy prepaid minutes and top up the phone.
Yeah.
And it was like I'd gone back 25 years.
Okay.
And that's where the real challenge was, popped up in my mind. I looked at this, I thought, how is this consumer credit thing working here in the UK?
Of course.
And Europe and obviously the US. How does that look?
And did you have some conviction on that before you landed?
No.
Right.
I mean, so, really it was a case of land over here, build a network, get to meet people, and just start to live here and understand the market. Otherwise, you really don't know what's going on. And so it looked like it was a challenge, but I wasn't sure. And so I spent the next couple of years looking at this, which is, how does consumer credit look in the UK? Is it, very accessible? Is it exclusionary? Is it very expensive? And of course, all of those things were true. So consumer finance today, as we know, is exclusionary by nature.
Yeah.
It is very expensive. It's hard to understand. And so, we look at all those things. If I said to you, do you have a credit card?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so if I said to you, you've got 1,000 quid, I'll make it a round number.
Yep.
On your credit card for 42 days past your interest-free period, what will it cost you?
I don't actually know.
No, and by the way, no one does.
Of course.
That's the point, right?
Yeah,
that is the thing.
Right.
So you look at credit card companies and you go, guys, these cards were invented 75 years ago.
Of course.
This model has not changed, and it's fundamentally against you. The whole point of a credit card is, you've got some of the smartest people in the world, and this is the thing that gets me a little bit, right, with the world. You used to have some of the smartest people, and still do in the world, try and figure out how to make you click an ad. All right? Not like saving lives, not doing anything interesting, just how to click an ad. And then you have some of the smartest people in the world trying to figure out how much money can I give you that you can't afford to repay on time, but will one day repay.
Yeah.
That's what a credit card does.
Of course. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they can then revolve you into interest.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't make any money.
For sure. I hear you.
So that all seemed wrong. It seemed like there was something broken
I get it
there.
completely. And actually, so I'm doing the same thing that you did earlier in your early days, moving to the US with my family at the moment, and we've got the same challenge, right? So we've just tried to sign a lease agreement on a property. And that's been an absolute nightmare because we don't have US credit.
Yeah, forget about it.
So then you have to pay 6 months up front.
Exactly.
It's like, well, that's a cost that's come out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
But so it really resonates on that basis. So, okay. So question for you then. This is obviously the foundation of the Zilch philosophy. But how many of your consumers do you think really understand the product?
I mean, look, I think product market fit tells us that quite a few of them do, right? And I think this is the trick with Zilch is it's quite complex.
Yeah.
But the way we deliver it to our customer is really very straightforward, straight talking and simple.
Of course.
And that is the trick. That is the difficult piece. The background bit, and we'll talk about how we've put this together. It's complex, sure. But actually that's not the most difficult bit. The difficult bit is taking all that complexity and showing it to the everyday person and them going, yeah, I understand that, right?
So true,
in my busy life, and I've only got so much time, and I don't really care, and whatever. But I get it.
But that brand that you've built, that resonates so much with your target demographic, right? And I guess that target demographic is expanding all the time. I actually talked to my 67-year-old dad about this podcast, and he knew Zilch straight away. He knew the brand. And I was actually quite surprised about that, to be honest with you. But that must be a nice trajectory that you're seeing.
He's an Arsenal fan.
He is an Arsenal.
Okay, well, our sponsorship of Arsenal maybe is prompted that, but that's great. So I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, maybe, and just for people listening, what is Zilch really? So think of our business as the best of credit card, debit card, and installment payments.
Right.
This buy now, pay later, some people call this.
Of course.
All packed into one product. That's really what Zilch is. So what we did is we said, look, what if we could build a consumer finance product that's simple to understand? You get everything you might need in consumer finance in one place, one app. And we leave out all of the stuff we don't like about credit cards, things like revolving debt, high interest rates. Let's get rid of all of that. Let's make sure there's no hidden fees. Let's make sure you can actually understand what it costs. Let's just make it simple to understand.
Yeah.
And let's see if that resonates. And so effectively, that's what we've built for people, right? So people we issue you a card. You can add it to Apple Pay, Google Pay, all the things you would expect. You've got the app, and the app is almost like a remote control for the card.
Sure. Yeah.
So if you want the next transaction to be a debit, you can just go on your app and say that. We'll give you rewards. If you want it to be credit, you could go choose an installment plan. 3 months, 12 months, pick one. And we will then subsidize the cost of all of this using ad revenue from brands. And just to explain to people how that works, effectively what we did is we started by saying people are struggling to get access to credit.
Yeah.
They get it. And then what do they do with it? And the answer seems obvious. They spend money. They go and they buy something. And then you go speak to those brands and you say, well, how are you attracting those clients? Oh, we're paying Google and Facebook and all these companies,
Of course.
To get in front of you and bring you to the store. And they're spending billions on this, clicks and impressions. And we know that 30-40% of clicks and impressions are just some bot that's scrolling and clicking and scrolling. So this is where we said, well, hang on, what if we could actually introduce a brand to you through our app when you want it? That brand could pay us the advertising budget, not Meta or one of these other companies. Yeah. And that might be 3, 4, 5% per sale. We could then use that to offset the cost of credit to you when you spend at that store. And this way we're eliminating ad fraud for those brands. They're not paying clicks and impressions on some site they don't know where it is, and it's actually just a bot.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're driving a sale, and brands love that. They're only paying for sales. But the customer is getting a better price on credit, or they're getting a much better discount or a reward.
For sure.
That you don't get anymore, right? These rewards cards, and that all disappeared 10 years ago in the UK. You just don't get them.
Yeah.
And so that's the product that we've created. And so it's quite complex. You've got a payments business, a credit business, and an ads business all baked into one.
For sure.
But for the customer, it's a straightforward app. And all I'm doing is I'm like, yep, I'll pay that on installments. And the price is just better than you could believe, that you could ever imagine, because we're doing all this complex stuff in the background.
Absolutely.
So that's how it works.
With that level of complexity as the founder, how do you prioritize? Because, especially in the earlier days, I imagine it's so complicated to know where to put the resources, the investment, the effort, when all three of those things that you've just talked about, I guess, require a lot of time individually, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's kind of always two things. We're product-led org. That is the business. So, for us, we've always spent the most amount of our time, bandwidth, and money on people and the product. So whenever it's confusing, it's like, we'll just make the product better.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of, that's the default position.
Yeah.
So because it does, like you said, there's always a million things you could be doing.
Of course.
But whenever it's confusing, do this. And obviously drawing on like the muscle memory of my previous company.
Yes.
We did a lot of ads. We did a huge amount of credit lending, underwriting consumers. In Africa, you're underwriting people, in some cases, don't even have fingerprints.
Yeah.
Let alone ID books or driver's licenses, right? If you do enough manual labor, you actually rub the fingerprints off of your hands. So how do you identify these people? We had to do voice biometric systems, etc.
Right.
So lots of different challenges, frankly, to run an underwriting and consumer lending business in Africa.
Of course.
And the UK presents its own challenges, but of course people have mobile phones, they have IDs of some kind in a lot of cases, credit scores, etc. So applying some of the muscle memory of how we solve those problems, how you build a card issuing platform, which again I'd done before, was helpful.
No, of course, I completely get that. I think the unique thing here that you kind of talk about is, all of those different things, they could lead you down a different avenue, right? When you're building a business and especially when you haven't quite proven it out at scale, I guess in those early days, and you come across these challenges, each one of those challenges could lead you down a different path, right? Having that conviction about, right, this is where we're going, this is the problem that we're solving, and we are specifically focused on solving that thing. That's such a difficult thing to do, right?
It is, yeah. It is.
And I don't think many people really see that. So you can talk about, okay, every day we solve these challenges and we put the effort into in being product led and solving challenges for consumers, but actually having that conviction is really, really tough. So where does that come from?
I mean, I think it's like, again, it's like a muscle memory through childhood and then, growing up, which is start something and finish it.
Yeah.
And, I like that, which is, two things I would say, which is if something annoys you more than a couple or so of times, go fix it. Stop complaining about it and fix it.
Nice.
And if you're going to start something, finish it. And I think that's important. So that's where, again, if you talk about talent and hiring and it's like what I like to see is people complete things.
Yeah.
Because there's something about the person that tells you they'll stick to it. The grass is not always greener. The other thing you want to build is not going to always be easier. We had so many things along the way where people would go, oh, well, maybe we could do this or build that feature. Or actually, instead of doing the thing we're doing, we just build it a bit like that because these guys are doing something like it.
Yeah.
And, all the time you have to be like, no, we're not doing that. We're building this, right?
Yes.
Let's complete the task. Now, obviously, you need to, as you know, in a startup, you have to be able to pivot and hear what's going on and see it. But unless you have super conviction, you need to make that move. The point is we're staying the course.
Right.
So I think just having people around you who also believe.
Well, it's funny though, isn't it? Because at the start, I guess they don't believe, and when
that's your job, right?
Yeah, right.
So like you're selling the dream. I mean, this is the point.
And then as soon as they see it, it's like actually that becomes a positive part of the process, right? And they're just reinforcing the message for you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And by the way, this is the point. In the beginning, you're selling the dream.
Yeah.
Like this is what could happen. This is what could be.
And then stopping scope creep.
And then you have to stop all of that scope creep and be like, let's stick to the mission, even if right now the mission's not working.
Yeah.
That's the difficult bit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that evolves and you get other challenges, as you roll forward. But certainly in the beginning, that's what it's all about. It's like, and my wife and I often talk about this. We've got 2 boys and, what will they do when they grow up? The world of AI, things are changing. I think for me, you need to have interpersonal skills and be able to sell.
Yeah.
Like then lots of everything else can be okay because, people don't think of entrepreneurship necessarily and building a team as sales. That's all it is. I mean, you're going to a stranger and you're saying, come work for me on this mission that's very unlikely to succeed, but it's going to be great. You know what I mean? And actually you have another job and it's paying you well, but you should leave that as well. And you should come do this.
Sign me up.
Yeah. I mean, this is sales, right? Like, some of the most hardest sales you got to make because if you sell and you buy the wrong product, you get the wrong person, it ruins the whole business.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So, the stakes are super high and people really have to believe. And I think if you don't have that conviction, if you're wavering in that, I don't think I'd believe you.
No, that's so true. It's really interesting to hear you talk about it, right? Because even in my business, much, much smaller than your business, but I face those challenges all the time, and you can see it. And actually that scope creep is so easy. It's so easy to let that happen, right?
Very easy.
But okay, so then we go back to 2021 and you're obviously scaling the business nicely. And we're in COVID, and you missed the $100 million funding round, which must have been super tough at the time. It must have been a big test for you and the team in that moment. How do you get around that? How do you recover from that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember it vividly. So we had we were going out to raise our first real round of capital, and because this is a consumer credit business, you need debt to fund the receivables, the loans, and you need equity to fund the operations of the company. So you need both.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if you go to the equity side of the investors, they say to you, this is really exciting. Do you have the debt?
Right.
And then you go to the debt investor and you say, this is the thing. They go, that's amazing. Do you have the equity? And just to explain that, if you're a lending business, you need to borrow money to obviously fund those loans.
For sure.
And typically how it works is that partner will expect you to put a portion of that money in yourself. So let's say for every £100 loan, you need to put 10 or 15, initially more than that, up to £40 of your own money into the loan, because the debt provider's like, hey, I want you to have skin in the game. So you need the equity side. You need that the capital. So the debt partner wants you to have the equity partner wants you to have the debt. And they're kind of like, once you have that, then you come speak to us. So it's the chicken egg situation. And so we finally managed to get a debt provider who was like, hey, we're good to actually honor this term sheet. But obviously, so basically condition precedent, you go and find the equity. And we went to go find the equity, flew out to the US, had a fantastic meeting, and, were subsequently sent a term sheet. And this is the week before COVID, basically the COVID lockdown started rolling out. Ooh. So we were like, okay, COVID's coming. It seems like it's fine. We got this term sheet. And then we woke up on the Monday. We were meant to hear from these guys, hadn't heard from them. Tuesday, hadn't heard from them. The lockdown started being announced in the UK.
Right.
And then Wednesday, I remember vividly, we're sitting we had like one meeting room in our office, and we were sitting in this meeting room, and I put the phone on speaker, and they were, oh, hey guys, great. Yeah, just calling you up to let you know, we've just been looking at it, and actually we're not going to do the deal. Oh. And, that was, as you say, 100 million of debt.
Yeah.
I think 15 million of equity at the time. And so this was a big deal for us. And they effectively reneged on this term sheet and said they're not going to do it.
Right.
So naturally, it wasn't the best day, right? And we kind of, all right, that's not the most exciting news.
Of course.
So we had to roll forward. We changed the investments, the fundraising strategy, and moved a little bit away from typical VC, because it was a mess.
Of course.
VCs were trying to figure out, like, do I support my own portfolio? What's going to live and die? I don't know if I can look at anything else right now. And so I sat with my co-founder, Sean, and we discussed this. And, and he had a great network of high net worth and family office money here in the UK.
Right.
And so we sort of said, let's pivot to speaking some of these officers and high net worths rather than VCs.
Right.
And at the time, if you recall, Bank of England rates were like 0%.
Of course.
Right. So anyone with a bit of cash was looking for yield. How do I go and make some money on this? The bank's paying me nothing.
Yeah.
And so it was a good time to raise money from individuals or high net worths,
right?
Or family office.
Okay.
And so we started moving in that direction and started to find a lot of success raising money from family offices. The other thing about COVID is that before COVID, if you wanted to go raise capital, you would have to go and do face-to-face meetings.
Yeah.
No one was going to invest in your business if you didn't meet them.
Of course.
Face-to-face. So you could have maybe 2 or 3 of these meetings in a day.
Yeah.
And that's if they were in London. If you were flying around, you could do 1 or 2 maybe on average in a month per day.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, my co-founder and I could do 8 calls a day.
Of course.
Because you could just do 40-minute Zooms back to back to back to back to back. So we could do what we did in probably 3 weeks of pitching.
Yeah.
Would have taken 6 months.
That's hilarious.
Right.
Yeah.
So it actually helped.
So yeah,
it didn't feel like it.
You turned it into an opportunity. No, I can imagine. Yeah.
But it actually helped us to accelerate this effort because in the high net worth family office game, you got to kiss a lot of frogs, right? You got to hear people tell you no, useless, rubbish, never going to happen, that's crap. Like all of these things are what you got to hear.
Of course.
And my favorite, by the way, is hearing some 23-year-old, 4-year-old analyst explaining to you why it is that the thesis doesn't make sense. It's one of my favorite. but needless to say, and you hear a lot of no's, but you get a yes and then another yes, and then you tell the next one you have a yes,
of course.
And so you build it. And so we were able to lead these rounds with family office money and then back sort of venture capital behind that.
Right.
And, this was sort of peak ZIRP era. A lot of capital trying to find a home and find some yield. And so we were fortunate that was the case.
Yeah.
And obviously COVID also accelerated people's use of e-com.
Of course.
And that also helped our business. So, you win some, you lose some.
Absolutely. It's such a nice way to look at it, right? So the challenge turned into an opportunity, but then on top of that, you also had that moment in the market where everything just started to make sense for what you were building. It's really, really cool. And then what happened next? So what was the next step from there? So you got the funding and then you started to build. How did you go from 0 to 250 people so quickly?
Yeah, basically that we went into COVID with 15 people.
Right.
We came out of COVID with 150 people in the team, which was quite bizarre, right? Because we had hired all of these people remotely.
Yeah.
Everyone, we did hey, we all back party. And the 15 initial people were am I even in the right place here? There's just so many different people, half of which you may not have met.
Yeah.
Because you're not in an office environment, so you're not working with every person, people in different departments. So you turn up, you don't know half the people.
Yeah.
So it was a crazy time. But effectively what happened is we had a campaign that went quite viral with the product that following December.
Right.
And, we registered almost 800,000 customers just in that month.
Wow.
And so the product really started to take off.
Okay.
Which was brilliant to see.
I bet.
Of course, subsequently, we learned that some of this was fraud, and we had to go and unpick all of that because, of course, whenever something goes that well, you tend to worry about it.
Yeah.
But needless to say, a huge amount of customers joined the platform. Everything starts moving.
Right.
Capital is obviously looking for exciting and brilliant businesses. We would go out and raise money, and it was crazy. We had people in some cases, send us a check for £20 million, transfer us the money, and we're like, we haven't even signed the documents with you yet. They're like, yeah, but I don't want to miss the round. It was really incredible. So, that was fantastic. It was amazing to see it. But naturally also the counter to that was everyone was raising a lot of money.
Of course.
So the competition was fierce. If you remember, these were the days that Uber, any ride-hailing app, delivery apps like Deliveroo, all these people were also really well-funded and competing fiercely for all of us to use them. So we were all subsidized by these companies, venture capital firms. We were all paying nothing for Ubers and nothing for Deliveroo. If you remember, these were the days, right?
Yeah.
As a consumer, well, we were trying to build a consumer business in that same market where you had some of our peers, if you could call them that, or people at least adjacent to us in the market, were spending a huge amount of venture capital money, almost giving it away to consumers. And we were trying to compete in that market. So it was really tough.
I bet.
And these companies had raised billions. We had raised obviously a substantial amount of money, to date over £300 million, but at the time maybe 100 million. So it's a lot, but you're competing with someone who's raised 10x that and is just giving it away.
Right.
And so, so there's pros and cons to all of this.
For sure.
And so it all just was a little crazy. At the time we were burning £7 or £8 million a month trying to build this business. We were hiring. We had 20 new joiners starting every week.
Right.
So, I've always met every single person that joins the business. We like to talk about the culture of the company. And so, every Monday I'm doing a stand-up with 20 new people playing our video, telling them the mission. It's going to be amazing. And then, by the way, also we're like burning cash, what's going, building and growing, and everything's sort of a little bit going crazy, but breaking a bit.
Yes.
And now you talk about, now it's different. Now where do you put your time? That's very different because you've got real customers. This is breaking. That's not working as it should. What do you do first, second, third, fourth, and fifth? That was difficult.
Yeah, I bet.
And so that's when we really started saying we need to almost stop, take a breath, and also look at talent, like how are we recruiting people?
Yeah.
Because this is when your mega scalers, Google, Meta, etc., they were just hoarding talent. They were just hiring people and giving them nothing to do.
Of course.
And we had Google above and below us in the building we were in. And so it's like I had to physically watch and walk out the engineers at night. I'm like, no, you off you go, and then go and greet them and bring them into our office. Don't go upstairs.
Just protect them.
Yeah, it's like this is how ridiculous it was.
Wow.
So so it was like basically war. I mean, it was a war on talent.
Okay.
And so we had to really we were like, we can't win this. We can't pay people what these companies are paying.
Of course.
We can't give you a cactus and a haircut and a dog to pet.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So we're going to have to figure it out a different way. And that's when we really started to invest heavily in talent. Our talent team internally, how we're interacting with external parties.
Yeah.
What are we building in the eye of the consumer, who is the talent?
Of course.
Around the business. How do we get them to understand the mission we're on, and appeal to people to get the right type of people to come to the business? And that, occupies a huge amount of our time, even still today. The whole business is people.
Okay. And so what changed about you personally when you kind of went from, 15-person team to all of a sudden you're in charge of a massive team with bigger problems and lots of challenges to face in the market as well? So how did you evolve in that moment?
Yeah, I think it's just an allocation of time challenge first and foremost, to make it as simple as I can, which is, in the beginning, the majority of my time went to the product, the product team, which is obviously where I like to spend a lot of my time. And a portion of this went to talent. And then a portion of it went to something's on fire, right? So you had that little bit.
Yeah.
I think over time, thankfully, you have less of something's on fire.
Right.
Those things tend to be different. They tend to be, they happen much less frequently, at least for me.
Yeah.
But they're much bigger problems.
Right.
So it could be a major partner has had an issue legally and doesn't, we need to resolve this.
Yeah.
It could be a macro event and we've got to turn up at number 10 or 11 and have a discussion with the PM or Chancellor about this issue. They're bigger problems, but they happen less frequently.
Right.
So you can allocate less time to them.
Yeah.
What I tend to do now is spend a lot more time on talent and actually then less time again on product, because we've got such great talent in product.
Of course.
So I don't need to sit and we don't need to go through all the screen flows and figure out what we think and look at the A/B test. Of course, I don't need to be doing that. People who are better than that at that than me are doing that. But staying as close to the product as I can right now is something that I like to do with this reallocation of time.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you now actually have investors.
Yeah.
So you need to manage this. You are on a permanent fundraising cycle. It never really stops. You either teeing people up for what's coming, or you're closing what's just happened. It never really ends.
Of course.
Or you're speaking to the debt partners and so on. And so, you basically have, I would say, capital markets start to occupy 20, 30% of time.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you have none of that.
Yeah.
Product goes down from maybe 70% to, 30, 40%, and then the rest is talent.
Of course.
That makeup just looks different. So I think a reallocation of time is the main change for me. And then the other thing is what a lot of founders, I think, do struggle with, which is you are so close to the action.
Right.
You've given birth to this thing.
This is your baby,
right?
Yeah.
And you now need to say to someone, you need to trust that they're going to do a good job.
Right, and then get out of their way.
Yeah, and you need to really be out of the way. I mean, that's something that certainly we say at Zilch. If you've got micromanagement over here and you've got whatever the other thing is called, complete agency over here, we're like off on this side of the scale type thing.
Okay.
So we really like to hire people that we think are brilliant and really let them get on with it. We don't like micromanagement at all.
Right.
What we do have, though, is people intrinsically understand our business. We want people to know the detail, deep detail. Okay. So we're going to have someone with super agency in our company that's working on something be able to still walk up to me and tell me the intricate detail, and I understand.
Right. How does that work in reality? So how do you actually make that happen?
You need to stay curious.
Right. So you're still close because you have those conversations.
So I don't want to get in your way, but if we're launching something new, I want to go and understand how does it work. So I'll go read the Jira ticket. I'll understand the write-up. I will be curious enough to go figure it out. And obviously, if there's something I don't get, I'll ask you.
Yeah.
But that's rare. I mean, if it's well written up, it's got to be well written enough for people to go and develop the thing.
Yeah, build it. Yeah.
You can go and figure it out, right? So I understand and know, and people are still sometimes surprised by that. They're like, oh, this feature and we're doing this. I'm like, no. And we build in 7 days instead of 3. they're like, okay, cool. So
Right.
you need to be really interested in what we do
Absolutely.
and what you do inside our organization.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think you'll ever be great at that thing.
Okay, so a very tactical question then. Do you block time to actually go and do the reading required to stay close?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
So,
and that's just focused on that specific task.
yeah, I think if you don't do that, you're just never going to do it, right? There will always be
Right.
something else.
Yeah.
So I specifically reserve time. And this is something that, for me, in my previous businesses, they weren't the size of this company.
Of course.
And so I always found EAs a difficult role to hire. I'm kind of the type of person who likes to keep my own personal stuff to myself. I'm really not, I like to keep business separate from personal life. I don't like to overlap the things.
Okay.
Some founders are different. They have the family in it, like there, and they host people at their home and stuff like this. I don't do that at all.
Right.
And I always say this to people at Zilch, like, we don't talk about our business like a family.
Yeah.
That is a misnomer, I believe. We
I
talk
agree.
about it like A-class sports team. We're going to have the most amazing players on the pitch, and if they're not the best players, we're going to pull them off.
Right.
Right? It's hard to do that with your sister.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't like them to overlap. So I've always found, how do you quite place this person? They've really got to get to know you. If they don't get that right, it doesn't really work. They have to also get along with the rest of the team because they're the gatekeeper, but shouldn't come across that way. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think we've done a good job of getting that right actually here. And one
Right.
of the things that, our EA does well for me is block time.
Yeah.
So, okay, I've got to block this time for research, block this time to meet someone new, block this time. And that is helping, certainly.
Of course.
I think that practice. So as you say, you've got an hour and a half on your hands and you sit and you go, all right, I can actually deep dive and go down this rabbit hole on this ticket and go into that one and see what happened. And that I find fascinating.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, very good. And obviously, having observed this as a partner to Zilch, you're bringing together world-class talent, but they all have their own conviction, their own opinions, and often, they're slightly different profiles to one another from what I've observed. How do you make that work, right? Because you're building a team which is, I guess, by its nature, contrarian, and also going to challenge you as an individual, but you're making it really work.
Yeah, I think it's... I think conviction, how does someone come to the point that they have the conviction is kind of the key, I guess.
Right.
If having conviction for conviction's sake doesn't help anybody, certainly not now at this point.
Of course.
So there's enough data for you to really get into the detail and be able to come and show and really prove the case. So I think, opinions don't count.
Right.
Right. Everyone's got one. They're not very valuable. So, I think what I love is people who are not yes people, but they're not going to say no for the sake of saying no. They're going to say no if they have the data to show that, that maybe doesn't work. I like that. But what we don't need is people who are just contrarian by nature and they just want to go against the grain because they think that's useful.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think if it's the type of person who's curious, brilliant at what they do, fantastic at what they do.
Yeah.
Love also and are very interested in what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think for me, if you have really interested people who are willing to roll their sleeves up and get into the data and actually understand what's going on,
Right.
and then they have a contrarian view, lovely.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's what we want. If it's any other type of thing, then it's not very productive. So these are the types of people that we look for. And at Zilch specifically, you have to lead from the front.
Of course.
You can't just sit and delegate. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, the team does not like that type of person in our company. So if you can't step up and be like, hey, I've been talking to you guys about this thing. Let me show you me doing this thing.
Yeah, here's what I've done. Yeah.
Right? That people love in our company.
Right.
What people really don't like is I've got a strong view and I'm contrarian, but I do none of it.
Yeah. No, nice. Okay. And how do those contrarian views that are data backed, that are well researched, well thought through, how do they actually surface? Like, how does that happen in reality?
I mean, through friction,
right,
in conversation. So, again, I'm like, my view is South Africans are quite straightforward. We're quite direct. It doesn't concern me or bother me at all.
Right.
It makes some people uncomfortable, but they'll have to live with it or perhaps work somewhere else.
But just on that point, so stepping back and observing this objectively, if you can, do you think that's part of the success that you've had as a leader?
It may be. it may only be because then we've built people around that can live with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereas perhaps if I was airlifted somewhere else, it might not be great, right? But I mean, and I also want to be specific about this. This is not, again, having an opposing view or creating friction for no good reason.
No, for sure.
Because then everyone in the room will be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Right? This is like, no, hang on. I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And I've got the data. My data tells me the following things.
Yeah.
You're like, this makes no sense.
Right.
And we have a lot of those types of discussions. So I think there has to be some tension and some friction, but it needs to be respectful and data backed. And if we can have that, we should have that all day long.
And are you happy when things aren't quite bottomed out? Because then you have to go and do more investigation, I guess, in that scenario.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the other thing, is people recognizing when they, the best is people says, this is the thesis. Someone says, I have data that's counter to that. I don't believe that. And they go, I actually can't answer that right now. Leave it with me. I'm going to go and figure it out.
Great.
Brilliant. What's not great is if that person takes it personally and go, oh, well, and they try to make some argument and becomes contentious for no reason because they actually have no point. That then doesn't work very well. And we'll have a discussion with that person afterwards, right? Which is like, hey, do you actually know?
Yeah.
Like if someone came in here and said, your lives depend on it, do you know? What's the answer? And that's just how you should think about it.
It's a really, really great way to frame it, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of how I like to think about things. It's like at the end of the day, let's just be honest with ourselves and leave our egos at the door. It's easy to say. For some people, it's hard to do.
Right.
But that's the proverbial, person that we don't want at the company.
Yeah.
Egos are a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
So if you can help people leave the ego at the door and be like, you know what, people respect you. We all respect your opinion. You're just wrong. That's fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the right people will accept that, move on.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about the consumer credit market today. Obviously, it's evolving at a rapid pace. I think, Zilch is playing a big part within that. Where do you see the future of consumer finance and consumer credit going?
I mean, for us, the way we're thinking about it is that consumer finance or credit or payments isn't the most exciting thing for us. I bet if I guess that you didn't get up this morning and think to yourself, I just can't wait to pay. You know what I mean? I'm just so excited about this. And actually even more so, I just can't wait to defer the payment of something today. It's just going to be so incredible.
Right.
So we operate in a sort of space that is by its nature mundane.
Yeah.
It's commonplace. There's nothing too exciting about it. But what we're trying to do is change that a little bit, which is, I think a lot of people have said, let's go and try and build financial literacy. I think that's important. And we're really excited to see, obviously, Louise from Go Henry has finally, after many, many years, managed to get some of this into the syllabus, and we can't wait to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And that's important. But the reality is that I think the subject matter, just generally and principally, for a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 16-year-old, is just not that exciting.
Agreed. But then when you stick agentic over the top, actually it starts to become more interesting, right?
Well, that's the point. So where I'm getting to with this is that we feel that we shouldn't really have to burden you with this stuff.
Yeah.
It's a bit like, think about, the car, and it was, what it was. It went to manual, went to automatic. A lot of people today, I look at their driver's licenses and they don't even have a license to drive a manual car.
Of course.
Some people would get in a car and be like, what is this? Why is it that you, the vehicle, the technology, is asking me to change the gear? Why is it that I should know when's good to do that? I'm just driving. You know what I mean? And I think it's like, you used to get in an elevator and someone used to press the button for you. And you're like, why is someone doing that?
Yeah.
Same concept. And I think the same with payments and consumer credit. That's how we feel about it, which is a computer is so much quicker at calculating what might be good for you and how to spend your money than you are anyway.
That's true.
So why is it that we're asking you to figure that out? Like, why are we putting that in the hands of the consumer? Why should they decide? You want to tap and pay on the tube, you go to the pub, you have lunch, whatever you're doing. If there is a way to optimize that payment, firstly, how would you even know? And why are we asking you to figure that out? Why are you even thinking about it? We should just make that seamless and rewarding for you.
Yeah.
And if we can do that, it could actually become delightful, right? If you got an alert that said, we just saved you £2 on this, we've just deferred the payment for you over 12 months because you actually wouldn't be able to afford it in 6 months from now.
Right.
We can see. So we've managed your cash flow for you. All of which, by the way, has guardrails around this, and you could go change it or say, I don't like that. You need to still be in control. But that's the way we see it is, and again, I come back to the car thing, which is we're removing the gearbox and the clutch and we're making it drive more seamlessly. One day you're not going to need to hold the wheel. But for right now, it's good that you maybe can grab it.
Yep. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And that's how we think of the future of finance is you go tap and pay with Zilch. We're going to just take care of it for you. It's going to be the most optimal way for you to pay. You can tell us what that target is. Is it about cost for you? Is it about affordability?
Yeah.
Is it about discounts and rewards? Tell us what you're after, and we'll optimize that all for you, all through our app, and we'll show you that through some chat interface, right? Our product will tell you, I saved you this, I did this for you, I did that. What do you think? So that's how we think about the future of this. Whereas right now it's like you got to pull out a debit card, a credit card, a charge card, something type card.
Yeah.
And make that decision yourself.
So as a consumer, at what point does your personal data become more valuable than the money that you have?
I mean, it already is. That's what we all know, right? In this world, it's all about data. And I think, so customers of ours are linking open banking to our product and then using our product as a top of wallet product. So customers are using us for 65% of their transactions and they've linked open banking. So we can see everything that's through us, off of us, and we can all use all of that to make the appropriate decisions and optimize everything for you. And that's really what we're trying. That's what we think the future is.
Right.
Because payments are becoming seamless and invisible, right?
Of course.
Think about even a card these days. You're not so fussed anymore what the physical card looks like.
I don't really use one at all, right?
You put it in your wallet, you don't see it again.
Yeah.
And you get out of an Uber,
Yeah.
you don't do anything, you just pay.
Yeah.
So we don't want to try and create some wedge that's like this friction point where you need to think about us while you're paying. No one's going to like that.
No, of course.
What we want is that you pay for everything with Zilch, and this way we can optimize everything for you. We can give you the best price, deals and discounts, pay over time if that's what's needed to manage your cash flow. And that if we can manage all of this autonomously for you, right, we think that is a great outcome.
Very much so, yeah. So the challenge now is proving that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, you start again with a manual car. So we've got different plans and you can choose to pay now, pay later, pay even later. And there's cognitive load there. We see some people are like, I'm confused, I'm not sure. So then we started to show you a recommendation. And, after that, we've got now features we've recently rolled out in the last year. We're busy testing these, which are, we'll choose for you and you can reverse the decision. So everything's a step at a time and building trust. Let's start to do more of this for you.
Yeah.
It's like you don't not trust your car if it's automatic. You don't drive and then it changes gears and you're like, hey, stop that now. You know what I mean? Like, what have you done there? You just expect that it's going to be fine.
Right.
But it took a while to get there.
That's true.
For me, even mentally moving from a manual to an automatic was like, I was like, not happy about it at first.
Well, we've got the Waymos coming, right? I had my first trip in a Waymo last year in San Francisco. It was like, well, this is blowing my mind. And then by the third time you're in that Waymo, you're like, this is just normal now, right?
Carry on with your day. And that's where we hit it.
Yeah, right. That's really, really exciting. Well, look, just to kind of finish off the conversation then, I'd love to just talk about you on a personal level, right? So as you say, you separate your work and your personal life quite clearly. But does that mean that you've got kind of a fine line between where you switch off from work and then how you invest your time in your family? How does that work in reality?
No, I think it only works in one direction.
Right.
It's like a one-way ratchet, right? So I don't like to let family blend into work.
Yeah.
But work is my life and my family. I mean, I came up with the name for the company with a dictionary thesaurus and my wife sitting there, and actually she chose the word Zilch.
Amazing.
So she's a sounding board. We'll chat at home about things. She's part of the team effectively. I mean, she's running the home and running around with the boys, and I am, at the office working on this thing. And so it's a team. Yeah. I mean, this is the other thing I always find interesting, and maybe, I don't know if you've seen this, but like when any founder or entrepreneur or budding entrepreneur says, what are some of the lessons or what advice would you give me? One piece of advice I think is really useful is, have you spoken to your partner about this decision? Because you're just busy strapping them into a roller coaster.
Of course.
And you're not even telling them. You're like, don't worry, just pop this on over here. You know, it's all good. And then boom, and away you go. And it's up and down and all over the place and sad and happy and terrible and awesome and amazing and all the things.
Right.
And so it's like, you know, we've been together over 20 years, my wife and I. So we've grown up together, literally.
She's seen the journey, yeah.
And so she's seen the journey of my last company and this, and she's been a fundamental part of all of that. So, you know, so work doesn't stop for me. It bleeds into the home, and I feel good about that because I organize my life around work.
Of course.
And we do that. We do a great job of that. We've had 20 years of practicing that.
Of course.
It's the other way around I don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. That's amazing. And it's having that right family support, family network to enable that to happen, enable you to execute at the level that you can.
If you don't have it, nothing distracts me more at work more than if something's going wrong at home.
Yeah, I bet.
Something can be bad at work. It doesn't really bother me as much because we've got a whole team and we're going to figure it out. Right. Mostly. I mean, that happens. But if something's wrong at home, that's very different.
Yeah. Okay, final question for you then. So if you went all the way back to the very beginning, maybe when you were doing the university project, what do you wish you knew then that you know now based on your experience?
I'm pretty happy I didn't know many things then, to be honest.
Helps you be curious.
If I knew more then, I might not have done anything.
Right.
Just being honest about it. I mean, I think, you know, as you learn more, you become more risk averse. And, you know, you question things 500 times because you have seen things before. I think that can be helpful. It also can be detrimental.
Right.
I think just being a bit of a dreamer and going for it is a fantastic thing. So actually, I'm pretty pleased I didn't know much back then.
Yeah. As long as you've got that conviction.
Yeah, I think if you have it, and I mean, honestly, I've kind of really enjoyed, that's the other thing is, I always like to surround myself with people I enjoy being around. There's nothing worse than, imagine going to work, you're building something, and you don't enjoy being around the people.
Yeah.
You know, my wife sometimes jokes, you know, and I'll say to her, oh, we need to stay late, or we got to go in on Saturday and do this thing. And she's like, don't pretend. Don't act like this is a chore.
Actually, I've seen that in your office, right? The executive suite. It's such a cool vibe.
Yeah,
it really, really is. You've got that absolutely nailed, haven't you?
That's brilliant, and that's the thing. She's just like, don't give me a story. It's going to be tough, and we're on the road 3 days pitching, and she's like, you guys love it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the reality. I think it's like you need to be around people you really enjoy being around.
Of course.
So I don't know how else to answer that question. Really, then. I'm actually just glad I didn't know lots of things.
I'll be honest, that's the perfect advice for someone just starting out, right? So what a lovely way to end. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Phil. That was brilliant.